Hey guys, welcome back. Well, we're still waiting on gaskets. We're still waiting on the axle housings and the axles to come back from sandblast so we can glip tall those, get those assembled, and then get them installed. We have the brake band installed. It's real simple. The brake band just goes around the drum. There's a stud that comes up through the bottom of the case here. That's what this rod is. Comes up through the case with this nut. I put this large fender washer on there, and then I have it cotter keyed into place. The shaft, the brake lever shaft, goes through the housing. There's a spacer washer, and then there's a cotter pin there. And then this end of the shaft here, the brake lever shaft, is offset so that when you rotate the shaft, it rotates that cam and tightens up that brake drum so you have brakes. Just like that. So according to the parts manual, there's no gasket for underneath here, which makes sense because this shaft is for the shifting forks, and there's really not a way to seal this up. On top of that, this reduction gear and clutch gear, when it's on here, runs in a bath of oil anyhow. So I'm not too worried about there being a gasket here. Let's go ahead and grab the shaft. We'll see if we can't install it in the tractor. Okay, let's see what we can get done here. This is a pretty heavy assembly, so please don't tell me I had to do this before the differential was in place. Let's see here. Can I tip this up maybe and get it on the other side? Okay. Or maybe we might be taking something back apart here. Can I get this to slide? There we go. Here, hold on, Raylan. Hoofta. Okay. Well, we got it kind of set in there. We just got to get this bearing quill aligned appropriately. Okay guys, we got it in there. The cap screws are tightened for the bearing quill. And really quick, I wanted to point out, you see how this bearing quill has a flat spot in the top end? And on the bottom side, there's this little dog ear that comes off. Well, that dog ear is there to keep that expansion plug in place if it were to ever fall out. And then it gives access to the shifting rail, shift fork rail, to be slid in through this side. So make sure that that thing is put in the appropriate position. So, but everything turns nicely. The gears look good in there, so we can go ahead and put the shift rail in. So what I'm going to do is set this one in place, set this one in place, get some grease. Put some more grease on here. Maybe put some on this side. Wipe off the excess here. And we'll move on to the next step, which is adjusting everything appropriately and let's see, putting the springs, detents, and safety wire and cotter pins in place. Okay guys, welcome back. Again, it's a couple days later, but we're still working on the D here. I haven't finished the installation of the shifting forks yet because this stuff has to all be aligned when everything is back together, so to speak. So we're going to leave that for now. But we did get our new felts in for our main bearings. So I'm going to go ahead and insert those into this groove here. We'll tap the main bearing caps back in place, tighten everything down, double checked it for how it turns, and then that is done. And when that's done, we can put the first reduction gear cover on. The only thing I have left to do here is I have to put safety wire on the bolts for the quill, or the carrier, the bearing carrier, for the first reduction gear. So once I finish that, we can slide that cover on. Then we can put the shield, the dust shield that goes on behind the pulley, and then the pulley can go on. So that side will be pretty much done. Can't put the flywheel on yet on the other side, so we're going to wait on that. The clutch driver, that is kind of the last piece. The clutch driver and the clutch cover is the last piece of this side here. But hopefully by the end of the week, today is Monday, so by the end of the week, hopefully we'll have the axles and axle housings back on this, the chains on it, and hopefully adjusted, and maybe even get the rear section back on the ground. But no promises. So we're waiting on the axle housings and the axles to come back from sandblast, and we got to put Gliptol on them. And then, from what I understand, getting these things sealed up is not a very easy process, and getting the chains adjusted and everything. From the factory, if you guys remember from when we disassembled this, from the factory, these axles are clamped in. They're not bolted into the side of the housing. So to seal up all those clamp bolts, what they did was they took 10 lead washers per bolt. And I don't know how many bolts there are around this. I'm guessing 6 to 8 on either side. So you're talking 12 to 16 total lead washers. Or, no, it'd be, sorry, my math isn't mathing. Let's say we had 6 bolts per side, which I think there's 8. So 6 bolts per side, 10 washers per bolt, 60 washers per side, that's 120. So if you had 8, that'd be 160 total washers. And somebody had told me they checked on what those lead washers would cost, and it was like some astronomical number of like $800 for lead washers. So what I've been directed to do is use this Right Stuff Permatex. It's kind of like a gasket maker, but I think it's a little bit stronger, better stuff. So that's what we're going to use to seal up the axle housings and the axle housing clamp bolts. So let's go ahead and put the felts in. We'll get the bearings slid back into place, tighten that stuff down, check it again, and then that might be it for tonight. So that might just stop the video there, and then we'll get the first reduction gear cover, the clutch, and all that stuff slid into position when we're ready on the next video. So let's get to it. Okay, so there's no perfect way to do this, but I think that's probably about as good as we're gonna get. We might have to trim a little bit of excess off the ends. I did soak these in oil prior to yeah, we're gonna have to trim some of the ends. Prior to inserting them, I soaked them in oil. Probably trim about 1/4 inch off each side. And then I don't like to have oil dripping out everywhere, so I'll lightly take them with a rag and kind of squeeze a little bit of the oil out of them, just so they're not completely messy and dripping all over everything. So just give it a light trim here. Start small, because you can always cut more. So there's one. Let's try fitting that back in. Well, that fits much better on that end. And then, let's see, I think we'll cut it about right here. Try fitting that a little bit. And it's just a hair long, which is great, because over time it's probably going to shrink. So I'm just kind of working my way around, forcing that felt into place. Not exactly an easy thing to get in there, but we're working on it. Okay, I'm just gonna go and maybe I can use this here. Just kind of shove it where it needs to be. Pack it in there. Okay, I'm just gonna get my brass hammer and lightly tap this into place. Okay. Okay, this side we're doing the same thing. we're just tapping that, fitting that felt seal to this groove. I need my oil soaker upper rag. Again, I'm just lightly giving it a squeeze to get rid of any of the excess, because these things are very well saturated now. They've been soaking for quite some time. Why don't I start at one end? Then I only have to trim one end. And I think we're gonna go with that right here. One little chunk. Just like that, I believe. Perfect. Okay. Now it's just a matter of tightening down the main bearing, double checking the spin on the crank, and we're done. Okay guys, well I think that's going to do it for now. We're going to button this video up. Hope you guys enjoyed this little segment. Quite a bit done with the rear section. Looking forward to getting the well, the crankshaft is done, but the rods, we ran into an issue with the rods. The piston pins do not fit inside the journals for the wrist pin, or I should say the wrist pins do not fit inside the bushings for the wrist pins at the end of the rod. So we're going to have to take those in and have them bored out, because one of them will slide halfway through and the other one won't slide in at all, which tells me that it's probably too much for me to do with like a brake cylinder hone. So yeah, that's what the plan is. So we'll have to take those in and get them done. But while we're waiting on that, we can finish up the rear section here. So that's going to be probably what the next video is, or at least part of it, is getting the axles together, getting everything in the case, putting the sprockets on, and then the chains, and then getting everything adjusted appropriately. So that's what we're looking forward to next. All right, see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching and wrenching with me.